Let's bring in Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, one of the great shooters in the history of the NBA. All right, Legs, who was more deserving of being thrown from their game? Draymond was. Embiid just got a technical.
You're saying I only get one choice?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing here? Okay. If I have one choice, I'm going to go Draymond. But I think they both should have been ejected. Now, look, I want to be clear about something. If it was solely up to me, neither one of those guys is probably getting ejected. Okay, and I got some reasons for that. One is the fans pay enough of a price during the regular season that the number of games that these guys don't play with load management, the number of, how much longer they take to come back from injuries than they used to. Now you're also going to punish fans that want to watch playoff games by kicking guys out for stuff that really didn't hurt anybody. I think Sabonis sold that pretty well. I think Claxton sold it pretty well the way he collapsed to the ground. So if it's up to me solely, neither guy's getting ejected. But if you're going to throw out Draymond Green for retaliating when he was provoked, you've got to eject Joel Embiid for the same exact reason. He was provoked. He intentionally tried to kick him in the groin. It just so happens he missed the target. To me, intent should go behind it. If that's the basis for the ejection, Dan, they both should have been ejected.
Explain to me how James Harden is thrown out.
I can't, because that's one of the strangest ejections I've ever seen. In the 10 years I played, 20 plus at ESPN, I don't know that I've seen a worse ejection. James Harden, right? I mean, and any referee should know this looking at the review. If you're a basketball player, you've got the ball and you've got a guy crowding you to the extent that he was being crowded. All airspace is taken away. There's already contact before James Harden has even initiated his move. Right? The ball's going to be in his right hand. Well, your left hand, just the momentum of your left hand is going to go forward and it's going to go out to fend off the defender. You then have to make the determination in looking at, if you're Tony Brothers and you're looking at that film, you have to say, did he intentionally punch him in the groin? And that's the determination they made. And I just don't know how you conclude that when, to me, it was so innocuous. The motion with his left hand was so short and abbreviated, and he was just trying to get some momentum and fend him off to take that first dribble. It's an obvious basketball play. So I was shocked by it. But look, if you go look at the tape, at most you say, okay, offensive foul. And then if you really want to get extreme, let's give him a flagrant one because of the area of the body that he struck. There's no way you can toss a player from a game, particularly a superstar, from a game over something that to me was completely unintentional.
I would have given, at worst, Harden a foul, offensive foul. I would have called Royce O'Neal for flopping.
Man, listen, this is a whole nother subject. Dan, do you remember a number of years ago they addressed this because it had gotten out of control?
This was the J.J. Barea rule.
And they had it at a point where it was in the rule book that if you flopped a certain number of times, you build up sort of like a point system like we have in flagrants, you could be suspended for a game. Obviously, that just went away because I've never seen an era in this league in which virtually every trip, someone is on the ground trying to trick an official. So I do want to give the officials a little bit of leeway here and saying I can't imagine how hard their job is because you can't see it all, right? Some of it you catch out of your peripheral. And when you see a guy snap his head back and shoulders go back and fly on the ground, and these are big, strong professional athletes, your inclination as an official is like, I better call something. Something must have happened. It's so frequent now that it's become a total sideshow to the actual action. It's an art form. These guys should all have strict Screen Actors Guild cards. They're perfecting trying to trick officials into getting a call. What happened to the old days where I'm just going to guard you? I'm going to stay on my feet. I'm going to guard you the best I can. I'm going to contest the shot at the end. And if you score on me, I'm going to do the same thing the next time. Like that mentality is gone. It's let me see if I can get something here. Let me see if I can somehow, force an offensive foul, force the official to go looking at a review. It's amazing to me the way that these guys flail about the court with very little contact to precipitate it.
Tim Legler wants you to get off his lawn, ESPN NBA analyst. Kawhi didn't play. I've been fascinated this past week, maybe 10 days, with Kawhi Leonard and how history is going to remember him. And we're calling him Rare Jordan because when he plays, he's Jordan-like, but it's rare when he plays, and it's a treat when he does, but then he doesn't play last night. When it's all said and done, are we lumping him in? Is he with Kevin Durant? Is he with Steph Curry? Is he, the new wave that's, going into the top 15 or 20 players of all time?
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at to answer that question. I'm going to say no. The short answer is no, he won't be. And it's because of what you just mentioned. I thought the same thing. When I saw him in the first game go against Kevin Durant, and miraculously, I think it's the first time they played against each other since he got to the Clippers 4 years ago. When I saw him go up against Kevin Durant, I was so much anticipating that matchup. And look at him play so spectacularly in that game. I thought the same thing. Man, what have we been robbed of by not watching that more often, over the last, 5 years. But as a result of that, I don't think he will be lumped in there because I think when you look at players, Dan, historically, there's two ways to look at it when you want to rank them. Rank them according to their talent, and then you have to also rank them according to their career. And for me, that means being out there, being available, playing a lot of games, missing the number of postseasons that he has missed. So the talent is undeniable. I think Kawhi Leonard belongs in that category with those guys. But when you start talking about waxing poetic about their careers, he's not going to be put into that same category as the guys you just mentioned.
The over-under for LeBron points against the Grizzlies, Game 3, is 28.5. Now, we've been debating if he should respond to Dillon Brooks. Brooks saying he's too old. I don't respect you unless you put 40 on me. What do you think LeBron should do in Game 3 against the Grizzlies and Dillon Brooks?
The great thing about LeBron James is he can go for 35 or 40 and have nothing to do with Dillon Brooks. It just happens organically by what the game requires and his greatness. So I think he's going to dominate the game. That doesn't necessarily mean you go for a huge scoring number. He's going to do what it takes to control the game, facilitate, make guys better, take advantage of scoring opportunities.
But what would Kobe do? Let's say
Kobe, different mentality. See, so Kobe didn't have the responsibility on his plate to make sure everybody else was cool on his team. Kobe didn't have to think that way. Now, he still did it because, he was a great player. He'd make plays, but he was a raw attacker. That's what Kobe was going to do. That's what Michael Jordan was as a player. LeBron has a different set of responsibilities nightly. And he's also got Anthony Davis he's looking at, every other night, looking at that barometer, like where's his energy level tonight? Maybe I have to do a little extra as a scorer. If Anthony Davis is rolling early, I don't have to do as much as a scorer. So he reads the situation and he takes advantage of scoring opportunities when they're there. It just so happens he's so great. That could mean a 35, 40-point game that has nothing to do with Dillon Brooks, getting his thermometer up.
Yeah, I said, no, you're LeBron. You have nothing to prove, and don't even acknowledge Dillon Brooks. That's what he wants. You're going to drive him crazy by not acknowledging him. And Dillon Brooks he's a Draymond wannabe. He's part of the headlines. He's getting attention. He wants all those things. Last thing you want to do is acknowledging him.
Yeah, I think even a better comparison for me, I said a couple of days ago, he's more like the modern day version of Lance Stevenson.
Yeah.
Right? Blowing in LeBron's ear and like all the stuff that he was doing. The difference is that Dillon Brooks is a more physical and more capable and better defender. So like LeBron has to come ready to play against a guy like Dillon Brooks defensively. Lance Stevenson, it was more literally like just a sideshow clown act trying to get him to react at all. So I could say I won, like kind of like what Dillon Brooks did the other night, clapping when LeBron finally acknowledged him by staring at him. Dillon Brooks clapping in his face. It's literally like, a child trying to desperately get that attention that they seek. And that's what Dillon Brooks is pretty good at. And so I agree, he shouldn't acknowledge him. Don't stare him down. Don't talk to him early in the game. Just go be yourself and make sure that when the game's over, we're saying that LeBron James is the best player on the floor.
Golden State blowing out Sacramento. I don't think anybody was really surprised there. But I'm wondering about this when you play with a teammate that you're constantly answering for. Like, at what point does Golden State and Steph and Clay, Steve Kerr, we got to answer for Draymond again? Draymond's not the player he once was, but they're still answering for him. Is there conversation inside that locker room that does anybody say to Draymond, hey, come on, you can't be this. You can't do this. Does Steve Kerr take a role in any of this stuff?
I don't think those conversations really are had. Maybe with Bob Meyer, maybe the front office. But I really think that they believe he's such a volatile person that they kind of don't want to acknowledge it directly to him. And they say all the right things publicly about having his back and supporting him. And we wouldn't have won these championships without him. So we're going to be there and have his back. I'm sorry. You can't tell me at some level when Steph Curry goes home and he's sitting down for dinner with his family, or Klay Thompson or Steve Kerr goes home, that they're not like, oh my God, like, I can't believe, like, I'm dealing with this again, like the stuff that he finds himself in the midst of. And whether you want to say that's his fault or not, is what Sabonis did to him. He didn't have that emotional break that you need in certain moments, man. Put the brakes on. And what he should have done, and we just talked about this, the flailing, the flopping, the guy's acting. How about if you're Draymond, when he's got a hold of your leg, just go down?
Yeah.
And even if you want to cause some damage to Sabonis while also getting a foul on Sabonis, fall on him. That's the best way to get back at him, because then they're going to say, well, wait a second, maybe this is a flagrant foul against Sabonis for grabbing his leg and twisting him to the ground. Draymond didn't have the wherewithal to think about that in the moment. Instead, I'm going to get back at this guy, yank my foot free, and it's absolutely avoidable what he did with it next. He could have stepped to the side. He did not have to stomp on his chest. So to answer your question, I think to his face, no. And they say all the right things publicly. When they're privately with their own thoughts or their own conversations, it has to be unbelievably frustrating.
Well, he punched his own teammate in practice, Legs. So he can't even control himself in an environment where it's team friendly. I mean, he's not going to be able to go, oh, you know what? Let me act this way. He's bought into a WWE role. And it can be entertaining, but, man, it can be exhausting.
And he is, it's a shame, because it really does detract from what he is as a player, which is a guy that really helps you win. I mean, he is, to me, as great as he is defensively, I think he's more important to them offensively, because he is the guy that makes every read. He makes all the anticipatory passes. He reads all of that action with the screening on the wings and the back cuts, the dribble handoffs. It's all reads on his part. You have to have an incredibly high IQ to do that. Their offense flows when he's on the floor. Defensively, yeah, he's obviously very important. I think offensively even more important. And instead, we find ourselves so often talking about these things and negatively affecting his team when he's had so much of an impact on winning his entire career.
It's this time of the year that we bring up that you only played in 3 playoff games, and that was against peak Michael Jordan, 1997.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and unfortunately, like I have a reminder all the time that my whole career was the 90s, and he won 6 rings. He didn't really, and he didn't want to go hit curveballs for a couple of years. He probably has 8 rings, I'm guessing, which basically takes up the entire decade of my career.
But do you think if Jordan was still with the Bulls, didn't go play baseball for whatever reason, do they win 8 in a row?
I think they do. And here's the thing you can't answer is, when he left, he was clearly fried mentally. So the question is, well, okay, he doesn't play baseball, but he just continues to play in that state of mind. Maybe not, but that team was certainly good enough. And I have a feeling once, the warm weather started to hit around April 15th, no matter what his regular season was like or what he felt like mentally, the competitiveness comes out again. And I think that team probably does win 8 straight. Instead, Hakeem should have eternal thanks that he decided to go do that for a couple of years so they could get a couple in Houston.
Great to talk to you again, Legs. Thanks for making time for us.
Got it, Dan. Anytime.
Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, and won the 3-point shooting contest. Played in 3 playoffs. He's the Mike Trout of ESPN analysts.
Wow.
What 3 playoff games.
Why is this?